Hey, it's Mike and Harrison. Welcome back to 50 Years of Iron Maiden. I'm sorry I'm a little blurry. Um, Let me just try to fix that real quick. All right, we won't worry about it for now. Real quick before we start the show, um, I just want to say a few words for a showcast member who's had a bad run of events lately. Today, I was told that their youngest daughter is in the hospital and needs our prayers. So prayers she will get. Their daughter loves Lego and loves outer space and the solar system and presumably space Lego too. So, whatever you believe, please send it their way. Thank you, and on with the show. Harrison, how are you doing tonight?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Tonight, we are doing live at Hammersmith, otherwise known as Beast Over Hammersmith, a concert that they recorded just a little bit before Number of the Beast came out into record stores. Why don't you take it away from there?
All right, so just very quickly, I'm just going to do an addendum on the last episode because I did my due diligence. You might remember I brought to the table the hypothesis that live version of Remember Tomorrow was not live, but in fact was an overdubbed Made in Japan with Bruce's vocals. So I managed to find a bootleg of that very show, which it was recorded at, and there is differences, all that, hey, come on, let me see some hands. That's all gone. And there's a very, very subtle difference in the performance. So in addition to that, in Bruce's book, he says that one of the very first things he did with the band was overdub 4 live tracks. So I'm pretty sure that conclusively settles it, that that live version of Remember Tomorrow is not in fact live. Yeah, I upgraded the tech here, so I am visible now.
What's funny is that you and we've already recorded like this, so we've seen episodes that look. This is not new to us, so I'm glad to see that people have noticed. And thank you, Peter. Appreciate that very much. And we have Johnny Klauser in the house as well. All right, so why don't we start with actually showing off the physical CD, and then I will hand it over to you. But this was first released on CD in 2002. With inside this, Eddie's Archive.
So yes, I bought them all separately, the 3 Eddie's Archive discs, so I don't have the tin or any of the accoutrement, but the music, which is the most important thing. Now, I've always wondered, is mine a bootleg? Because mine has different text to yours, like the Iron Maiden logo. Like it looks like the real deal.
That's a question we'd have to look on Discogs, I think, to know for certain the answer.
But like that line doesn't match up with the back cover, and the font is different. So I've always wondered, like, it looks maybe it's like UK versus US editions, but yeah,
it could be. But yeah, yours is using the Blaze Bayley era logo, and this is using the classic Iron Maiden logo. Okay, interesting. All right, so as I said, this was recorded 2 days before the Number of the Beast was released. I think you wanted to say some opening words before we start diving into the album.
Yes, I'll get into that, all that information. So the recorded at the Hammersmith Odeon in London, March 20, 1982. So indeed, 2 days before the release of the Number of the Beast album. However, Run to the Hills, the single, had been out for a little while then, including the B-side Total Eclipse. So not every song was new to the audience. Yeah. So for the actual release of this album, or rather the initial lack thereof, now it was filmed and recorded as intended to be their first full-length VHS, but the project was shelved as the band were unhappy with the lighting at the Hammersmith arena. I believe Dave Lights had some issues there, unfortunately. Looking at the video footage they've released, it's not perfect lighting, but I think it's fairly serviceable. Or, it's good enough. I enjoy the show. You can see everything you need to, but, Steve has very high standards for Maiden. But between then and 2002, it wasn't all just barren in terms of releases. So 12 Wasted Years was a documentary that the band put together and released in 1987. And it was live performances intercut with interviews, mainly with Steve, but with some of the other bands. Now, 5 songs from that Beast Over Hammersmith show did make it into 12 Wasted Years. This would be the first time they would be ever seen. There's 4 Number of the Beast tracks, and then there is Sanctuary. Maybe there's 3 Number of the Beast tracks, Murders in the Rue Morgue and Sanctuary. But the important part is that Sanctuary, because we will get to this a bit later on the Early Days DVD. But they put out half of Beast Over Hammersmith in video form on the Early Days DVD. Now, Sanctuary was not one of those songs, so Sanctuary's inclusion in 12 Wasted Years is exclusive there. Then, in 2002, a Run to the Hills live charity single was put out with the B-sides Children of the Damned and Total Eclipse being the live B-sides from this show. Then shortly after, the show would get its full audio live album release in Eddie's Archive in 2002, which is where as Mike pointed out, where our CDs came from. Then, as I mentioned, in 2004, the Early Days DVD came out and a 9-track abridged video version was put out. And finally, in 2022, for the 40th anniversary of Number of the Beast, Beast Over Hammersmith got a vinyl re-release that sort of integrated the 2 albums into one package with the Number of the Beast.
So there you go, Henry. You can buy it as a vinyl, not necessarily as a CD, but you can buy it on vinyl as a separate thing. And hello to Melissa Nee, who might figure into the story next week. Thanks for checking in, Melissa, and everyone else, and Peter and Roger and everyone.
Now, the art on this was done by Derek Riggs, and I believe it's a replica of the 82 tour program.
Yes, according to Peter in the comments. There it is, yes.
Just zoomed in. Yeah, a version of that. But to the music. So, curiously, they don't open up with Invaders. This is a very atypical Maiden concert opening for an album tour because, as you know, it's become sort of the standard for them to open up with 1 or 2 songs from the new album. But no, Invaders was not played, making it the only Iron Maiden album opener not to be played live. So instead, we got 2 Di'Anno tracks, Murders in the Rue Morgue and Wrathchild. So, Mike, what do you think of opening with these?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Harrison, because I happen to have made some notes on these songs. I really love, it took me a while to adjust to hearing Murders in the Rue Morgue as an opener. It almost sounded like we were starting midway through the concert at first, but now that I'm used to it, I love it. I love that it starts slow and it really showcases Steve Harris's bass harmonics. I'm a sucker for that. And then it goes breakneck. But what a strange opener, isn't it? Definitely not like if I didn't know better, if that wasn't an official release, I would say, well, that's a bootleg and they missed a few songs at the beginning, you know?
Yeah. Murders in the Rue Morgue is, as a song, it's not an easy song to do without messing up because it's a song that could very quickly unravel itself and get away from you because there's a lot going on. It's like, I remember it as plain as day, as though it happened in the dark of the night. There's a lot of words going on, a lot of words, long words, and not just that, but also the musicianship as well. You know, like if the drums are out by half a second and then the vocals are out by half a second in the other direction, the whole song's going to become a train wreck. But this version is that everyone's locked in. Like, it's very easy to mess this up, but no, this version 100% throughout. This is one of my favorite. It is my favorite Bruce version of Murders in the Rue Morgue. The whole song is just top tier here. And oddly enough, as Pete's pointing about Ides of March, I don't know if Ides of March was played over tape at this show because the intro quiet bit to Murders in the Rue Morgue, I believe, was the intro tape, and then the band start playing with as the drums kick off the faster part of the song. But from there, it's straight on into Wrathchild with I've got to say, it's an insane screech from Bruce. I mean, unbelievable the power he puts into that during the bridge.
100%. I love that. He's very screamy on this album, but in a controlled, powerful way. You know, he had that youthful power that, unfortunately, it just fades tour after tour after tour. But another one of Steve's great bass openers. I've mimed that bass line so many times on this show already. I felt that this one, you know, as far as tempo and everything goes, it was more along the lines of the Killers album version, just with Bruce singing. But yeah, that's a huge difference, obviously, having Bruce singing. I just loved it. I'm just going to let you in on a little spoiler real quick because I like to I like people to know my method. And my method is I immerse myself in these albums before we do the shows. And I had about 2 weeks to do Beast Over Hammersmith. So this is a 2-week period in which this album is slowly starting to rival Live After Death in my heart for favorite Maiden live album. So I just want to get that out of the way. Over the course of this 2-week listening period, this intense 2-week listening period, this album has really, really worked its way into my heart.
Yes, it's unbelievable. We had to wait 2002 to get a proper live release, a full live release of this amazing show. I mean, as you point out, Bruce's voice here is unreal, even compared to the next two, Hammersmith, Peace of Mind, and then even against Live After Death. You know, I know Pete Jones said as well, it surpasses Live After. Like Bruce's voice is album quality here, and now we finally get 3 Number of the Beast songs right in a row with Bruce, and I mean, not to disparage the rest of the band, their playing is top notch here. Like everyone's on fire playing their lives out. That reminds me, actually, I forgot to go through the lineup. You know, it should be obvious at this point, but it's Bruce Dickinson, Steve Harris, Clive Burr, Adrian Smith, Dave Murray, and they're all at the top of their game. You know, Bruce's voice is amazing, and what better way to showcase it than Run to the Hills through Children of the Damned through Number of the Beast. So before Run to the Hills, Bruce gives an introduction talking about how it's the single, and you might have seen it on Tiswas, and then just do, and we're away with one of the best live versions of Run to the Hills out there.
Man, you know, so funny you should say that, because while I was listening to it just this afternoon, this final listening of this album before we do the show, I was thinking to myself, this version of Run to the Hills is so fresh. And so you can hear the freshness of it compared to the 200th time that they played it later on down the road. You can actually hear the freshness in it. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, the crowd, yeah, like Pete is saying here, the crowd's not as responsive yet. They don't know that Run to the Hills was released as a single, but they're not as responsive yet.
Pete's hitting all my notes right before I get to them, because my notes here for Number of the Beast literally point out no cheers on the narration because nobody was familiar with it. It's all just quiet, and towards the end there's a bit of a woo woo, and then of course after the song ends, just woo, everyone goes crazy.
That's what I had in my notes too.
This was the first time people were hearing those songs.
I might as well just say in my notes, I just put that you can hear a few pockets of cheers, and that's what it is. You can hear just woo.
I think there's a Maiden at one point. Yeah, I mean,
right.
You know, Children of the Damned was the one that we haven't touched on yet. I was going to say, it's an amazing performance of Children of the Damned. It's ridiculously good, this version. Like, you know, as you were pointing out, like it almost right. This is the to get into Led Zeppelin, it's The Song Remains the Same versus the Earl's Court 1975 debate. Do you choose the live performance that is earlier in their career with a much stronger vocal performance, or do you pick the later one with a slightly worse vocal performance but with a greater breadth of track listing that's more definitive of their career output? And it's like that with Live After Death. Do you go for the one Live After Death with the more tracks from more albums? But if Beast Over Hammersmith, even only being the first 3 albums, is no slouch. Like, I cannot stress enough how good this show is and how good Bruce sounds here.
Okay, so like basically we're all going to be in a case of symmetry here, because my notes say tour de force vocals and some really nice guitar harmonics too. I was really tuning into the guitar harmonics. But another note here is with Children of the Damned, that's where Bruce announces that the album is going to be out on March 22nd. So that's kind of just, you know, you talk about Live After Death with the more breadth of track listing versus this with the younger vocals. You know, it's so hard to choose, but there's something very special about this exact snapshot period in time before the album is out. That's how fresh Bruce is. Like, it's like catching lightning in a bottle, as the saying goes. And as great as Live After Death is, which we will get to, I think, sometime in April, this album, like Pete Jones is not kidding. This album can rival. And this pocket of songs, this trio from Number of the Beast, is a great example of why. Because once you get to the Live After Death versions, they're a little bit more by rote. You know, these are fresh.
Yeah, so there's also a bit of a sound difference here. Like, we're going into 2 Killers deep cuts now, and I find in general I'm liking Bruce a lot more on these Diano versions than like the Live After Death Di'Anno versions and so on and so forth, because this is before that massive arena sound that the guitars had and everyone had in Live After Death. It's a lot punchier, more aggressive, more street level, and that fits those Maiden songs. And, Bruce is being a little more growly. There's a bit more grit to the edge of his vocals on these songs, rather than later in his career where he'd sing them with a more clear operatic voice. So, I mean, a really solid version of Another Life here, the only officially released live Bruce version, and a really good version of Killers. I know he'd go on to do a really good version as well on Made in England, but there's a special X factor to this version. And of course, this version has the original drummer, Clive Burr. As far as I'm aware, this is the only full-length live album with Clive Burr on drums.
Yeah, that would make sense. My notes about these two songs: great version of Another Life with Clive absolutely on fire on the snares.
Although I must admit, I'm disappointed that the drum intro is far less complex than what the album drum intro is. It's like the diddle 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 diddle, as Martin put it, but in this one it's like more like, but yeah,
picky as ever. But anyway, another point that I wanted to make about this song is, it wasn't until this live version came out that I understood what the lyrics were. As I lay here lying on my bed. Bruce is enunciating it much more clearly than Di'Anno. And I even said in the Killers episode that we did with Martin that he's singing a lady lying on my bed, but it's not. As I lay here lying on my bed. So it wasn't until Bruce's enunciation did I understand the lyric. Fact.
Yeah. Plus the intro to the song is, this is a song about a gentleman who goes up top and has another go down here or something like that.
Yeah, but that wouldn't have helped me understand the line any better. It's strictly just his enunciation. And regarding Killers, I call it a screaming version with Bruce at peak voice tackling this song. This is a theme that's going to come up throughout this album, is being Bruce at peak voice. I said it's otherwise pretty faithful to the album cut, especially the guitars and guitar tone. We also learned during the intro of this song that Adrian had like some bruised up ribs or something that night. He had a rib injury of some kind that night. So it's another note for the history books. And that is correct, Harrison. There you are.
I don't know exactly what he's referring to, so I'm just going to assume it's everything I've said.
It's everything you've said. No. Yeah, another great pocket of songs there too. He is all trussed up. That is the exact wording. Yes, he's all trussed up. So it's presumably
I think he was referring to me saying this is the only Clive Burr live album. Because
probably
sound correct.
Pretty sure you're right.
Right. Yeah. So we are now back to a number of the Beast songs to round out disc one, but we get something incredibly rare here with one of them, the first one, 22 Acacia Avenue, and that's that Iron Maiden have a girl on stage, a woman rather, on stage in some skimpy lingerie and a leather jacket while they sing the song.
Right. That's not something they would ever do again.
Yeah. Oh, there was one, I think it was the Peace of Mind tour. Bruce had it. There was an incident with someone where he like ripped someone front top off, and I think he ripped a bit too much off. But yes, it's very rare for Iron Maiden to have girls on stage.
Yeah, basically Raising Hell was the last time, I think.
Oh yeah, that's true. Raising Hell, yeah. Simon Drake.
Well, we don't even. You know what? Let's not speak.
Yeah, that's getting ahead of ourselves. But yeah, it's the other song here is Total Eclipse, the B-side, which you pointed out. Bruce says is a bit more than just a B-side. Truthfully, they didn't have any other material to put on the B-side, so they had to pick one of these songs that they wrote for the album, and Total Eclipse ended up being the one. But like you might have remembered from the Number of the Beast episode, neither of these two songs on the album does it particularly well for me. I do prefer these versions slightly, but it's not like some crazy reinvention of the song that suddenly makes me like it.
I prefer the live version of Total Eclipse now. What did I say in my notes here? Yeah, Bruce says it really isn't a B-side. Didn't have enough room on the album as the excuse that he gives to the audience. But it is a B-side. Let's face it. That's what it was. It was the B-side to Run to the Hills, and it was already released. It sounds like Bruce is kind of struggling a bit at the end because those notes are really, really high during the final few lines. But I like it. I think it's pretty cool to have an Iron Maiden B-side played live at all. And I think
because Twilight Zone we don't have an official live version of yet.
Yeah, this is what see Peter again is using his ESP. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so we'll just put Peter in a timeout now because he's pre-anticipating us. And 22 Acacia. I like that it was introduced as an Adrian co-write. I called it a perfect performance, and his vocals, Bruce's vocals, are biting and growly, I noted. And this is something that you've also mentioned, that he still had the full range, but he was throwing in a little bit of grit there that he later on kind of dropped and sang more smooth and operatic. So it's a unique vocal performance.
In addition to being amazing vocal performance.
Yeah, amazing too. And that's the end of CD1. Now we're on to CD2.
Yes, disc 2 opens up with the instrumental Transylvania, which I say is always welcome on a live album, in my opinion. And this version is one of the last versions, I think, that they did, which has the Davey guitar solo, where he does some improvisational noodling for a few minutes.
Yeah, and I don't mind it. I mean, it's something you're not expecting when you're, coming from our era and listening back to something that from a previous era when they were playing guitar solos. It's strange to hear a guitar solo in an Iron Maiden set, but Davey's no slouch. And, obviously it's not going to be the same as, say, a Van Halen guitar solo where it's the centerpiece of the show. It's not that, but Davey's a great player, and he does a lot of really cool licks during this guitar solo, a lot of fast stuff. I enjoyed it very much, and it's not overly long either. It's not an overly long guitar solo. It's not a CC DeVille 7-minute guitar solo.
Or Brian May, I think he goes for like 20 minutes or something.
Yes, or Jimmy Page, perhaps. But it's weird to hear, and obviously they have far too many songs to play now that you don't want to smother the set with solos. But considering the time, considering, as you said, they needed more material and so on, awesome. And as for the instrumental, I'm more, I don't know. Transylvania Live is one that I probably would have preferred a vocal track, but we differ, you and I, and that's fine. What did Martin call it? Half a song?
Yeah, he said like an instrumental can only be like a max of 7 out of 10, which means, like, folks, you heard it here. Joe Satriani, Surfing with the Aliens, 7 out of 10. But anyway,
right,
yes, I think it was Martin himself that pointed out, when you're young and good, you want to show off a bit. So early in their career, we got these guitar solos, these drum solos. But 1986 was really the last time that we got any sort of solo that wasn't an impromptu thing to fill time because of something else.
Right, although we'll get there. What else did I want to say here? The only other thing I had to note about Transylvania is that it was played as it should be by Clive, because quite frankly, I don't like Nico's take on it quite as much. But again, that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah, I know that there were issues on stage between Steve and Clive, but none of that comes through in the performance here. It's everyone's at the top of their game. This was early in the tour.
Clive wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't burned out yet. He was probably still energetic and full of life, and probably wore him down as the tour went. I'm sure if you heard, say, the second to last show on this tour, I'm sure it would be a different story.
Speaking of Clive, something I do like about the lighting on this show is that it's often like there's this heavy blue and red lighting predominantly, and when a lot of the shots of Clive, he'll be like bathed in this one color that makes him look really cool. There's a show coming up where we talk about the drummers in a few weeks, and one of the pictures I used for that is from that Beast Over Hammersmith, and there's Clive, blue wash over him, and I think it looks really cool with the colors like that. When the white lighting comes on, yeah, it's not as good then. But when it's colored lighting, it looks nice and atmospheric. Yeah, they don't really do that anymore. Like, you won't hear Past the Jam live or any of that.
And there you go.
Yes, that too. So we move on now to We Want Information again.
Total silence from the crowd.
Narration that people are like, what's this? Except for maybe a few people that might have known The Prisoner. But as my note, I've got one line of notes on this, and it says, The Prisoner really doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, you're right. I think it's so bizarre though that the crowd is silent because on Live After Death, the one that we're used to hearing, I mean, the crowd is louder than the recording at points. Great hearing this with Clive Burr on drums. They're fast, frenetic, and flawless. The tempo does seem faster to my ears in the latter part than the album itself, but maybe Peter can correct me on that. Fantastic version. And again, we are hearing Bruce at this peak voice point of his life, and there's a notable difference. Not that he's weak on Live After Death, but there's a notable difference. You can hear it, and it gives it a different flavor. And I must also say, I find the sound quality in this album to be quite excellent.
Oh yes, it's amazing.
Yeah, like clearly it was only the video that they were disappointed with at that time. But at that, also just for context, bands like Iron Maiden, they were very forward thinking. So if anybody had come along and said, "Yeah, we can do something with the audio of that Hammersmith show," they would have been like, "No, we've got something new that we're working on." They never would have thought about doing a release of this show at that point in their career. They just wouldn't have. They were just too
Beast
forward
Over
thinking.
Hammersmith is unique in that it's the only full show Iron Maiden live album that has been retrospectively released. The only other sort of comparable release was BBC Archives, but that was like a compilation of different shows together in a live album. This is the only full show live album. So it did become a bit odd. Where do we want to tackle this? Do we want to touch on it in 2002? Do we want to tackle it in sequence? And I ultimately chose that because it's unique, we were just going to slot it in where it was recorded, and we'll just acknowledge the fact that we won't be able to say, "Oh, this album went gold and paved the way for Live After Death and this, that,
Right.
and blah, blah, blah." No, this is a modern perspective looking back on this archival release. But yeah, I mean, phenomenal release. Like they did right releasing this. They did. And this is from the Number of the Beast to A Beast on the Road. They played every song on the album except Gangland and Invaders, so naturally you've got songs like Purgatory, Innocent Exile, Twilight Zone dropped. I would love to hear a live album from that Italian tour he did where he was filling in for Paul Di'Anno. But I mean, like, the next song, when you've got a performance of this caliber on Hallowed Be Thy Name, I mean, I can do without Innocent Exile because this is an amazing version of Hallowed Be Thy Name. Bruce's finale scream on the last name is unreal. It is unbelievably good. Truly the best version of Hallowed Be Thy Name out there. In terms of performance,
Yeah, I described the vocal performance as passionate, and again, I think it's partly due to the freshness of the material to the band, and they were just able to throw so much more into it. And I think that's natural, because if you do something 200 times, I guarantee you the 200th time is going to be a lot of muscle memory, where at this point they're able to they're feeling it more, I think. I'm not a musician. I don't know. I've never played a live gig in my life, but that's how I interpret it as a fan. So there you go. We're just fans here, folks. We're just appreciating the music as we hear it.
Yeah, and this is before Bruce. Made in England was a VHS release of the main set without the encores that was released back in the day with an accompanying CD.
Yeah.
So while the full Made in England 88 re-release was sort of a re-release, it had been released back in the day, so I don't count it on the same level of Hammersmith here.
But we will cover that, I promise.
Yes, we absolutely will cover it after Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. The couple of final things I was going to say about Hallowed Be Thy Name is this is before Bruce got all croaky on the intro. And I don't like that croaky voice he does.
In my past life.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I've heard Blaze Bayley do better versions of that intro than Bruce, but anyway. So the final thing, this is a unique version of Hallowed Be Thy Name compared to every single other version. And I don't know if it's just because it's got Clive on it and every other version doesn't, but the cymbal count-in on Live After Death is usually like do 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 do, but on this one it's the only one with a fast cymbal count-in.
Okay, so how many versions have you're talking about with Clive, right?
No, I'm talking about across the rest of the discography. So
Okay,
yeah,
so that may just be a
Nico,
Clive thing.
yeah, might just be a Clive thing. But I listened to every other version. This is the only one with a fast cymbal counting. Nico always does it real slow. That's the sort of hard hitting investigative journalism you get only from me.
That's right, 100%. Not only do you get Lego art and a mustache, but you get hard hitting investigate. Anyway,
So we
yes.
do go
So
into 3 debut tracks now from Iron
yeah,
Maiden. The first 2 are sort of closing out the main set, and then the third one is the next encore. But we'll start with the first 2, Phantom of the Opera and Iron Maiden. Now, we do have Bruce live versions elsewhere. In fact, both songs appeared on Live After Death, but there's something really special about these versions. And as I alluded to, I particularly enjoy the more street level sound the whole songs have for these debut songs, rather than that huge arena sound. A really solid version of Phantom of the Opera, and my favorite ever live version of Iron Maiden with Bruce. At times it sounds, on other versions, it sounds like he's just singing the lyrics because they're the lyrics, and he needs to get to these, good night from Eddie and the boys, basically. But on this version, no, like you pointed out, maybe it's the freshness, but he's really, down in the groove with the song and the lyrics, and it's all coming together as one awesome package.
100%. And I didn't make a lot of notes here because I was just at this point of the album loving everything I was hearing, and everything was really flowing so well. Like this set and this album are extremely well sequenced. It may seem a little bit strange because you've got these pockets of 3 songs in a row from the same albums, but Phantom of the Opera is a top performance from Bruce. It's expressive, it's soaring. The tempo might be a little bit faster. Correct me if I'm wrong. For the title
They
track,
did play Phantom quite fast when they played it live.
For Iron Maiden itself, I put Breakneck version. It's got to be one of the faster versions out there. Loved it very much. Again, what you said, Bruce's approach to the vocals, it's different. We're hearing something different, and I think the best word is it sounds like it's fresh to them. And Sanctuary, same deal. Just more praise, heaping on more praise. These are fantastic versions. They should have a wider availability. I think, this album shouldn't just be, Henry shouldn't be asking us how he can buy this album. This should be something he should be able to go into his local record store or CD store in this case, because he doesn't have a turntable, and he should be able to say, can you get me Beast Over Hammersmith on CD? And they should be able to say, yeah, that's on EMI. It'll be here in a week. You know what I'm saying? Like, this needs to be more as widely heard as Live After Death. And we haven't even finished yet. So,
shows like this are the reason why Bruce got the amazing reputation that he got. It's the reason why he got the nickname the Air Raid Siren.
Exactly. Like, he really was an Air Raid Siren at this point. And I should also point out this album's a lot less produced sounding to my ears than Live After Death. To me, with Live After Death, well, no, you know what? We'll save it for that discussion. It sounds less
there's no
produced.
backing vocals on this.
Right. That's what I was alluding to.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so I'll just finish up Sanctuary.
Sure.
Sanctuary, it's not a bad song, and this is a particularly good rendition, but I'm just tired of the song. It's been on so many live albums. I say it's been on so many live albums because I had the DVD of Live After Death, which has the Sanctuary on there. I got Made in England 88, which has Sanctuary, but it wasn't on the original Made in England. And, it got played, and I've watched like tons of bootlegs. So for me, I'm tired of Sanctuary, but, if you like Sanctuary, you'll probably love this version. I believe it's before the long, from the low, and so on and so forth. It's tight, punchy version here. But yeah,
that's another show.
Yeah, so the encores continue with 2 great songs, Drifter and Running Free. Now, you'll recognize these as both the crowd interaction songs that have throughout their career had that long chunk of crowd interaction in them, but only one of them has it this time, and it's the right one, which is Drifter.
The right one. Well, you should probably say your favorite thing about the song because I have
Well,
something else
yes,
to
my
say.
favorite thing, easily when Bruce is winding up the crowd, he's just like, all the lazy bastards from EMI are up the back, and now we're going to do some singing that's going to take the balcony down to ground level. And having watched Black Sabbath's Cross Purposes live with a bit better lighting, I know that was filmed at Hammersmith Odeon. I know what he means by the balcony and that. I've seen the inside of the arena, and yeah, all the lazy bastards from EMI are at the back. And what I was alluding to with it being the right song for the crowd interaction is you don't clog up a tight, punchy, in and out in 3 minutes, energetic, not up tempo number like Running Free with 7 minutes of, a doc. I want to go back to the Europe and say, Doctor, Long Beach stuffed up my hearing, and so on and so forth.
Let me hear your right hand side. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they did pick the right song with Drifter. I didn't like one thing about Drifter, but I don't want to sound like a prude here. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, but it's when Bruce is like sort of like trying to get the crowd to cheer harder, and he calls them a bunch of effing women. I don't
He's just
like
like,
that,
we're not women. Yeah. That did not age well.
No, and it's not, and I'm not a prude, and I'm not going to say, it's just that, I know a lot of women that rock really hard, a lot harder than I do. And we have one of them coming on the show next week. And,
there are literally women in the front row of the Made in England video. You can see them.
Right. So, big salute to the metal women out there, because a lot of them would kick my ass anyway. But I love this version. And I know that I've kind of ragged on, Bruce doing the yo thing in past episodes, but that's the benefit of hindsight, is that we're now approaching these albums in order, and I'm looking and I'm listening to Beast Over Hammersmith, and I'm hearing Bruce do the yo, and it doesn't bug me. It's not bugging me anymore.
Plus,
so it's like my
you've
perspective
heard
is
by
changing.
this point like 14 or 15 songs of like awesome metal. It's like you're like immersed in the album now, rather than listening to one live version that you've plucked out and listened to.
Let's just give Roger a quick
best of luck.
Well, that was dumb. What the frick am I doing here? I don't know what I was doing. But anyway, Roger, from the heart. And everybody loves listening to Harrison. Yeah, the last 6 tracks are all Paul songs.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, like I said, they already played 7 songs from Number of the Beast, including B-side Total Eclipse. Short of playing the album in full, they really didn't have much more they could do. They weren't going to play I've Got the Fire yet. So, Paul songs it is.
Well, we might be talking about I've Got the Fire in a future episode. Running Free, top Bruce version, absolutely. I'm starting to trip over my words here, but
I mean, I've been shitting on Live After Death a bit here, but I do prefer the Live After Death version of Running Free for my favorite Bruce version, but the single edit, which cuts out the crowd interaction. But this is a great version as well.
I have a feeling that some of my things are going to be inconsistent over the course of the series, and that's fine, because when we get to Live After Death, I might have a completely different set of observations, because like I said, we are doing these in order, more or less in order. And we say things about albums that are coming, and then we have to start listening intensely to them. And as I'm learning, things change. Yeah. So with that,
when we get to Live After Death, I'm going to be all praise for Live After Death, pretty much, except for maybe 1 or 2 songs. But like, when I'm saying Beast Over Hammersmith does this stuff better than Live After Death, I mean it as a compliment to Beast Over Hammersmith, not an insult to Live After Death. Live After Death has plenty great stuff on it. It is my favorite live album of all time, even though I recognize that this is a better performance. But as Mike, you were alluding to, we're going into the final song now, and there's something really interesting you get here, which is Steve Harris intros Prowler, and after Bruce gives a quick thank you, Steve Harris thanks the audience, says, have a safe journey home. And like, that's going to allude to something, is that Steve and Bruce didn't get along very well on stage in these early tours. Bruce wanted his monitors front and center because he's the singer, and Steve's like, no, that's where my monitors go. And, Steve and Bruce would often be like argy-bargy on stage, trying to shoulder the other person out the way to be front and center with the fans. They had to be pulled apart after one gig. It was like Steve shouting, he's got to go, he's got to go. That didn't happen, tempers.
Yeah, Rod Smallwood would have to say, Steve, don't be fucking stupid. This guy's the best frontman you're going to have,
Yes,
Learn to
they
work
did
with it.
over time work it out, but at one point, early on, Bruce had these extra long legs on his microphone stand, and he'd use that as basically to like guard himself against wayward bassists that would come too closely. Occasionally he'd feel the crumpling of legs connect with it, but yeah, I mean, this is my favorite Bruce live version of Prowler out there. I don't know if it's backing vocals or it's some sort of echo going on with the arena, but as he sings "They Got Me Feeling Myself and Feeling Around," there's some sort of like doubling or echo effect going on that creates this kind of really cool vocal harmony for that.
Probably coming from the mixing desk, but who's to say, right? I love this version of Prowler, but it's so strange to me because Prowler's an opener, and to hear it as a closer is a very different context, and it works. It works. Like I said, this is an extremely well-sequenced show and well-sequenced album, and yes, you should check this out, Roger.
It's definitely better than the more widely available A Real Dead One Bruce version of Prowler, which was a bit lifeless.
Right, exactly. Again, we're dealing with a much younger band. But let's take a real quick look at the booklet too, because this is a beautiful design that Harrison did for the show backdrop. I love how the comments just work perfectly with the backdrop, but the booklet is also, it's all like this, it's beautifully designed. So as Peter said, this is basically the tour book miniaturized and re-sequenced for a CD, but this is not just a CD inside a box set. They could release this as a standalone. Am I right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, get it on vinyl if you have to. I recommend Eddie's Archive anyway, and we're going to do an episode basically on Eddie's Archive, or a mini episode or something. You're going to see everything we have in our collections. Beast Over Hammersmith as a live album, Harrison Kopp, I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10.
I would give it a 4.75 out of 5, maybe even a 4.9 out of 5. The only reason I can't give it the full 5 out of 5 is because Live After Death is my favorite, and I have to have like a slight, they can't be on the same level. But like, it's incredibly close. It's a fabulously good live album.
Yeah. Get it on vinyl if you can, but if you want to see a quick look at the Eddie's Archive box set one more time, we've been teasing and showing all kinds of stuff. But in 2002, this is where you bought it, in this box set here. And this is an original.
Yes, the first pressing with the blue.
The reissue has a red inlay. And you got 6 CDs in total, because Beast Over Hammersmith is 2. The BBC Archives is 2, and we'll be eventually tackling all of this music. And this is one that
some of it already. Speaking of, now that you've got BBC Archives here, there is also a performance from the Beast on the Road tour included as well. That's the Reading 1982 performance. Very similar vocally, but it's not anywhere near as long as Beast Over Hammersmith.
Right, the Reading Festival stuff. It looks like it is tracks 5 to 14 on disc 1, so it's not even a full CD. The final CD within the Eddie's Archive is not one that we're really going to be covering, because we're talking about all of the B-sides with their associated albums.
It has been incredibly useful when I've been listening to B-side.
Yeah, remastered versions of all the B-sides. Sorry, I should say a select.
Yeah,
it's definitely
there's a fair few live B-sides that are missing. Not that live version of Remember Tomorrow, but yeah, most of the studio B-sides are on there.
So there's Eddie's Archive. There's a pewter shot glass, or a pewter-based shot glass, and then you have this family tree scroll with the Eddie ring. We'll save that for another show because it's a pain in the butt to get out. But if you check out some of our post-show live chats, we have talked about this box set a little bit. I can't remember what I paid for that in 2002 dollars, but I think it was probably in the neighborhood of about $200. Pete Jones gives it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah. As you know, I bought these separate, singles after the fact. I bought this in about 2017. I got a good deal. I got a good deal if it's an original. If it's a bootleg with different text, then but anyway, 35 AUD is what I paid for it. So a steal.
So Uncle Meat's in the house here. I just want to say that tentatively, I'm really hoping Live After Death is the live album that we're going to be doing with Uncle Meat. and we're hoping to do that as a live episode. So
He
there's a
saw the
sneak
World
preview of what
Slavery
he
to
thinks.
us, so
Right. But
he's the
also
right
one
man
other
for
thing
the
I
job.
want to say is that to much to my surprise, we have Uncle Meat himself. He's going to be on my music corner with Johnny Clouser Monday night to talk wrestling. So that's cool. I'm really happy to see that happen. Really, I'm excited. So check out my music corner, Johnny Clouser, on Monday night for a wrestling show with Uncle Meat. That's going to be exciting.
That's the
Why
Reading
don't?
show I was talking
Okay.
about.
Okay, cool. So
It wasn't like Clive started playing badly, but there was friction between him and Steve Harris. You'll learn in a should I give them a spoiler of that future episode?
Why not? We still have.
It started with the luggage. Clive just got a little bit of extra luggage than everyone else, and it snowballed from there. Because when you're on a tour doing 184 shows, suddenly somebody getting a little bit of extra luggage makes a lot of difference when it's happening for most of the year. And it snowballed from there. There was one show allegedly where Steve comes up to the drum riser and tells Clive to play faster, and he deliberately plays really slowly. So it wasn't to say that Clive was putting in bad performances. He was just sort of going off the rails a bit mentally.
He was unhappy, and the road is hard on everyone. And
as we learn in the future, even Bruce came very close to quitting music entirely after one of these tours.
And Adrian just couldn't handle it anymore either after a certain amount of time. But I think we are just about done talking about this amazing live album, Beast Over Hammersmith. So next week, we have a special episode and a special guest once again. We're going to be doing Peace of Mind with Melissa Nee. And Melissa saw the Peace of Mind tour back in '83. So she's got that perspective going for her. And we are going to be talking about the whole kit and caboodle, the album, some of the movies that these songs, some of the books and movies that these songs are based on. Melissa is going to be dropping knowledge bombs all over the valley, just as Clint Eastwood is storming the Eagle's Nest. So really looking forward to next week's episode. Adrian, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he was unhappy with the tempos. He said they were choking the life out of the songs playing him so fast.
Well, we'll get there. I'm just really immersed in Beast Over Hammersmith right now, but I guess we got to start prepping for our next episode that we're going to be recording real soon. Although we won't be talking about that. What else do we want to talk about? Oh, of course. Last night we had a special episode. We had an interview with Blotto from Albany, New York. If you missed it, please go back to the channel, check out videos, and see the interview with Blotto. The guys were absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. I'm really proud of this interview, so please give it a watch. They have a new movie coming out called Hello, My Name is Blotto, the movie. It's a documentary about their long career, all the way 50 years of Blotto. Over 50 years of Blotto. Like 55 years of Blotto or something like that at this point. They used to be the Star Spangled Washboard Band back in the early 70s. So please check that out. If you are a music fan at all, you will enjoy Blotto. Harrison, anything else we want to say before we wrap up?
Well, I can say that we've been cooking up some small little bonus Iron Maiden related episodes that you'll be seeing soon, including our speculation for what we want to hear on the upcoming Run for Your Lives tour.
That's right. We just recorded a mini bonus episode, runs about 17 minutes. And that was a lot of fun. And I really seriously cannot wait for that one to air. But you're going to have to wait just a little longer. We may as well do the thing we usually do. Go out on a song, but we're going to go out on the Grab a Stack of Rock theme song because we just made a new version of the intro video, including Blotto, which looks fantastic. So I guess, Harrison, I'll see you next week for Peace of Mind with Melissa Nee.
That you will.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching Grab a Stack of Rock. Thanks for watching 50 Years of Iron Maiden. We have shirts, not this one, but we have Grab a Stack of Rock stickers right there. We have shirts. We have coffee mugs. We have all kinds of stuff. Support the channel. It helps keep us going. Like, subscribe, share. We appreciate it. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Peace of mind.
understand.